I saw it all, every glance, every shudder, like a story carved in moonlight and regret. This coastal town was a quiet cage where secrets clung to the fog and whispered through the salt-heavy air. Emily was a woman who stopped Hearts 36 with eyes like a fading sunset and a body that moved with a slow, dangerous rhythm. Her dresses hugged her curves, not brazen, but enough to make you stare when the dusk light caught her silhouette. Her husband Paul was a harbor master, hands rough from ropes, always out late managing the docks, leaving Emily to wander their empty house alone. That's when she met Ryan, the new deckhand, 24, all sharp edges, and a hunger in his eyes that burned like a wildfire. I'm just a neighbor watching from my porch, a glass of whiskey cooling my hands, seeing life unfold like a tragedy I couldn't stop. Ryan had blown into town with a backpack and a grin too sharp for his own good. He worked on Paul's crew, hauling nets, his shirt clinging to his frame in the humid air. Emily noticed him at the dockside market buying fish, her dress catching the breeze, bearing a sliver of thigh. He offered to carry her bags, his fingers brushing hers as he took the load. I saw her breath catch her eyes flicker with something dangerous, something alive. It wasn't just a touch, it was a spark, the kind that could burn a life to cinders. Emily knew the weight of her vows, felt Paul's ring on her finger, saw his coat by the door. But Ryan's gaze didn't care about promises. It was young, reckless, and it saw her in a way Paul hadn't in years. One evening, the market closed late, the docks glowing under a silver moon, the air thick with salt and sin. I saw them by the pier, standing too close. Ryan's voice low, saying something that made her laugh, a nervous, charged sound like she was teetering on the edge of a void. Her dress clung to her hips, the hem riding up as she leaned closer, and his gaze followed, bold, unapologetic, like he was already claiming her. His hand grazed her wrist, light but deliberate, and she didn't pull away. Her eyes locked on his, and I swear the air crackled, the waves pausing to witness. Her lips parted, her body swaying toward him like he was the only thing keeping her from falling. It was wrong, and she knew it. But the way her fingers lingered on his arm, the way her pulse raced under his touch, it was like she was drowning in him, and she didn't want to be saved. The moonlight painted her skin, her dress slipping slightly, and his hand lingered, pulling her closer until their shadows merged into one. That night, I lay awake. Their silhouettes burned into my mind. Emily, with her quiet life, her husband's steady love, was slipping. Ryan was a storm, and she was caught in it, her heart racing toward a mistake she couldn't name. I wondered if she'd pull back, if she'd remember Paul's rough hands, the life they'd built together. Or if she'd let herself fall, let the fire consume her until there was nothing left. I didn't know how deep it would go, but I felt it coming, dark as the night, heavy as the tide, a secret that would tear everything apart. The days after were a slow descent into forbidden territory. Emily found excuses to linger near the docks, buying fish she didn't need, her dresses a little tighter, her smiles sharper, like she was daring fate to catch her. Ryan played along, hauling nets with a grin, his eyes finding her across the pier. From my porch, I watched it unfold, a story written in stolen glances and unspoken promises, each one pulling her further from the life she'd vowed to keep, the life Paul thought was theirs. One afternoon, the sky turned heavy, clouds rolling in like a warning. Emily was at the market, her hair loose, catching the light like spun copper, her dress riding up just enough to show the curve of her thigh. Ryan was there, stacking crates, his shirt rolled up, forearms flexing with each lift. I saw her watching him, her eyes tracing the lines of his shoulders, the way his jeans clung to his hips. When he caught her stare, he grinned that reckless grin that promised trouble. She blushed, but didn't look away, her fingers pausing on her basket, her breath quickening like she was already lost in him. They started meeting in secret, quick moments when Paul was at work. The pier became their stage, the dark waves their shield. I'd see them there under the dim glow of a street lamp, standing too close, his hand brushing her arm, her fingers lingering on his wrist. I could almost hear her thoughts, the war inside her, Paul's steady love battling Ryan's fire, the way he made her feel alive, like her blood was singing for the first time in years. Her laughter was different now, charged like she was chasing something she'd never catch, something she knew she shouldn't want. One evening, it went further. I was out walking, the air thick with the scent of coming rain, the town hushed, except for the hum of the sea. They were behind a stack of crates, hidden by the pier, but not hidden enough. Emily's dress was unbuttoned at the collar, her hair loose, catching the fading light. Ryan's hands were on her waist, pulling her close, and her fingers dug into his shoulders like she was holding on for dear life. Her breath came in gasps, her eyes half closed, lost in a haze of desire that drowned out everything else. I froze, my heart pounding, knowing I should turn away, but unable to caught in the raw, desperate heat of their moment. When they parted, Emily's face was flushed, her lips swollen, her hands trembling as she fixed her dress. She whispered something to Ryan, her voice soft, urgent, and he nodded, his eyes still locked on her, like she was the only thing that mattered. They slipped away, but the air between them crackled, a promise of more, a vow that would break everything. I went home, my mind racing, wondering how long they could keep this up before it all came crashing down, before the fire consumed them both. The affair grew bolder, hungrier, a beast that fed on stolen moments and forbidden touches. Emily's lies to Paul piled up, late errands, visits to friends that never happened. Her eyes betrayed her, always drifting to the docks, to Ryan, to the promise of his touch. He was her addiction, and she was hooked, her body alive with a reckless energy that made her glow even as it tore her apart. Graydon. From my porch, I watched her unravel her life with Paul, fading into a shadow she barely noticed, her heart consumed by a fire she couldn't control. One night the town was still, the air heavy with the scent of rain-soaked wood and salt. Emily slipped out her silk dress, clinging to her curves, a scarf trailing like a whisper of sin. She met Ryan by the pier under a sky lit by flashes of lightning, the storm brewing as fiercely as the one inside her. They didn't speak, not at first. His hands found her hips, pulling her close, and her fingers traced the lines of his chest like she was memorizing him. The rain started soft, then harder, soaking her dress, until it was nearly transparent, outlining every curve, every shiver. She didn't care, and neither did he. They moved to an old storage shed, its walls creaking under the storm's weight, the air thick with the scent of damp wood and desire. I followed, drawn to their story like a moth to a flame, knowing I shouldn't but unable to stop. Through a cracked window I saw them, Emily pressed against a crate, Ryan's hand sliding up her thighs, his lips finding her neck, her breath hitching with every touch. It was a storm of its own, their bodies a tangle of need and desperation, a dance of forbidden want. Her whispers were soft, pleading, his rough, urgent, each sound a betrayal, each touch a wound that cut deeper. Emily's guilt flickered in her eyes, but it was drowned by desire, by the way Ryan's hands knew exactly where to linger, his youth making him fearless, reckless. The rain pounded outside, masking their gasps, but I felt the weight of it, the sin wrapping around them like a noose tightening with every stolen moment. When they parted, Emily's face was flushed. Her lips parted, her eyes haunted by what she'd done, what she couldn't stop doing. She adjusted her dress, but it was too late. The truth was written in the way her body still leaned toward him, hungry for more. I wondered how she'd face Paul, how she'd sit across from him at dinner, his rough hands offering the same quiet love she was throwing away for a deckhand who burned too bright. Ryan didn't care about the consequences, too young, too caught up in the heat of it all. But Emily knew deep down the cost of her choices. And yet, she kept going back night after night, chasing that rush, that moment, when nothing else mattered but the heat of his skin, the way he made her feel alive. It couldn't last. Nothing that burns that bright ever does. Emily's lies grew careless, her excuses thin as the thread holding her life together. Paul noticed, though he didn't speak, his eyes lingering on her when she came home late, her hair damp, her stories fraying. She was torn between the man she'd vowed to love and the boy who made her feel alive, her heart a battlefield where guilt and desire clashed. Ryan pushed her further, testing how far she'd go, and she went every time, unable to resist the pull of his touch, the fire in his eyes. One night, it all shattered. The town was asleep, the air thick with fog, the storage shed glowing faintly from a lantern inside. Emily and Ryan were there, their shadows moving in a dance of need, the light casting their sin in sharp relief. I watched from the shadows, my heart heavy with the weight of what I knew was coming. Her dress was on the floor, his shirt unbuttoned, their bodies pressed together in a frenzy of desire, her gasps louder now, her hands clutching him like he was her salvation. But salvation doesn't come from sin, not like that, not in the dark where the truth can't hide. Then Paul appeared. He'd come home early, his truck parked quietly down the street. I saw him first, his face a mask of pain and rage as he reached the shed's door. The lantern light caught the hurt in his eyes, deep and raw like a wound that would never heal. Emily froze her breath, catching her hands falling from Ryan's shoulders as the world stopped. Ryan turned defiant, but fear flickered in his eyes, a boy caught in a man's game. Paul didn't speak, didn't need to. He just looked at her, his wife. The woman he'd built a life with, tangled in the arms of a deckhand, her betrayal laid bare in the dim light. Emily tried to speak, but the words choked her, her voice lost in the storm of her guilt. Paul turned and left the door slamming shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the night. She collapsed, tears mixing with the sweat on her skin, her body shaking with the weight of what she'd done, what she'd lost. Ryan reached for her, but she pushed him away, her eyes wild, haunted by the truth she couldn't escape. It was over, and she knew it. The fire had burned out, leaving only ashes and a broken home, a life shattered by a moment of weakness. This story is real, raw, human, a tale of desire and its devastating cost. Emily's out there living with the pieces of what she broke, carrying the scars of her choices. Ryan moved on like young men do, but she'll bear the weight forever. If this hit you hard, smash that like button, drop a comment. Tell me, did she deserve it? Could you resist the fire? Share this with someone who needs a wake-up call, someone teetering on the edge of their own mistake. Subscribe, hit the bell, and dive into our next twisted tale. It's darker, wilder, and it'll keep you hooked until the end.